That does bring everyone to attention, I notice. Welcome, everyone. I'm Sal Pizarro, your president. I'd like to welcome you to the 5,373rd meeting of the Rotary Club of San Jose. Yeah, let's cheer that. 5,373. I wonder what the number will be next week. I hope you are appreciating a little break in the weather right now. It's been a little crazy, and I'm really thankful for all of you who braved the elements to be in here in the room today. And of course, those of you who couldn't, who are on Zoom, we appreciate you too. And those of you who are without power and can't be on Zoom, well, you're not hearing this, but maybe you're catching it on YouTube later when you do have power again. I'd like to thank the Los Amigos de Washington School Committee, chaired by Kathy Wiley, who greeted us out in the lobby. They've been doing some wonderful work at that school this year, and they're going to be telling us about it in a couple of weeks, I think. But let's give them a big round of applause for their work lifting up those students. So let's have our red badgers with the traveling mics stand up and introduce themselves so we know who they are, and then we'll get to Rotarian and guest introductions.
Hi guys. Happy Wednesday, and I'm Ava. I'm a realtor with Intero. I'm a red badger, and my sponsor is Karen Fox.
Wonderful. Ava, great to have you here.
Thank you, guys.
And then in the front left, we have...
Hi, I'm Desiree Escobar. I work for the probation department for Santa Clara County, and my sponsor is Roger Dodd.
Okay, so we've been trying something new with introductions, which is if you, of course, as you already know, if you are a visiting Rotarian, or if you have a guest, we'd like you to stand so that you can introduce your guest or introduce yourself. We're trying to move from, James, is this stage left? Yes, from that way, from this way to that way, so that our cameramen can follow them a little bit easier. So, you know, obviously, if you're standing up over here, that's fine, we'll get to you, but we're moving from one side to the other. So, starting us off, John Ball, doing it right.
Thank you, President Sal. I just appreciate the fact that I'm ahead of Larry. So, I'd like to introduce my guest who had cabin fever and said, "You got to get me out of the house today because of all the rain we've been having," and that is my wife Paula.
Paula, don't let him keep you in a cabin, okay?
President Sal,
Larry Stone.
Today, I'm the county assessor, by the way.
Boo.
All right, we get this going. My guest today is Lisa Andrew, who is the CEO and president of the Silicon Valley Education Foundation, and she will be our guest speaker talking on February 1st, talking about the effect of COVID on the social aspects of educating children.
Oh, that's going to be a big one. Great to see you, Dr. Andrew. Octavia.
President Sal, Octavia, I brought my friend again, Angie and Eric.
Hi, I'm Anjali Subedi, and I'm here as a sponsor of my Octavia friend. And I'm a mom of two wonderful kids, and by profession, I'm a real estate agent and also entrepreneur.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Octavia, for this opportunity. My name is Harry, and I'm from Santa Clara. Thank you so much.
Great to have you guys back again.
Hi, President Sal. Raul Lavering with WSP Engineering Consulting. I'm happy to have my guest here today, Paula Gardner, who's also with WSP. She's our Senior Vice President and our Northern California District Lead. So thanks for being here, Paula.
Great. Welcome, Paula.
Hi, President Sal.
Hi, Leslie.
We have Lisa Christian as our guest today. She's been working with the Next Big Project Committee. She's with cafeterias.
Oh, fantastic. Welcome, Lisa. Any more? Oh, yes. Mr. Sasweta, past President Sasweta.
Yes, President Sal. I'd like to introduce my son, Daniel Sasweta. He's with the city attorney's office here in San Jose, finally agreed to honor me with his presence.
Great to have you here, Daniel. We can never have too many Zazuetas in the house. Okay. Looks like we're all set. Yep. Okay. So, okay, we're going to move on to something. We haven't done this year. We've done it in past years. Should be fun. We kind of call it the chat and chew. We've got a few minutes. And since it's the start of the new year, I would like you to discuss amongst your table for a few minutes. You know, it could be, what is your New Year's resolution? It could be any travel plans you have for the new year. It could be what goals you've set for yourself. Talk about, you know, what you'd like to accomplish. So we're going to do that for about 4 or 5 minutes, and then have some people tell us the most interesting things that they've heard. So go to it.
Well, I guess we should converse since we're stuck here on Zoom together for a bit. Who else is listening and wants to talk?
Rod's here.
Hey, Rod, how are you? Pop says hi.
Linda Gold is here.
Hi, Linda.
How are you, Linda?
I'm good, Rod. How are you?
Good. Nice to hear from you.
Yeah.
Mary's here.
Hi. I'm excited about joining the climate committee.
Oh, nice to have you here, Kai Kai. And by the way, all, Kai Kai is a brand new member.
Welcome, Kai Kai.
Thank you.
Welcome. Hey, Rod, Stu's here.
Hi, Stu. How are you?
Happy New Year.
Thinking fondly of your father.
Thank you.
It's Elaine. Can you hear me?
Hi, Elaine. Linda Gold.
Hi, Linda Gold.
Hey, Elaine.
It's gold to hear from you.
Love it.
Mary Curtis here.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Happy New Year to everybody.
Yes.
You too, Mary.
How long can we say Happy New Year? Is there a cutoff?
Yeah.
I love saying Happy New Year, but I wonder how long can, you do that without people going, really?
Hey folks, Brian Adams here. My philosophy is we can say Happy New Year until Groundhog Day.
Okay, Brian, I love that.
That one sounds good.
Or how about,
That's a good one.
Valentine's Day? Happy
Well,
Valentine's
if you're really an optimist, you can go to December 31st, 2023.
There you go, Rod. There you go. Okay, so let's hear travel plans.
I have a quandary. This is Gay. My college roommate who lives in Oslo, Norway, wants to meet me somewhere in the next year to celebrate a really big birthday. And I thought about Windstar Cruise. It's gone up 175%. It's like 9,000 a person. Anybody have any better ideas of where to meet and when?
Wow.
Well, don't go anywhere PSA has to take you.
Yeah, or Southwest Airlines. Email me, anybody. I'm just searching, or maybe I talked to a travel agent. I don't know.
You know what, Dave? I did a stint as a travel advisor. I was subcontracting to a travel agency. And I can tell you, I absolutely see the value in contacting a travel agency. They'll figure it out, and they'll consider all kinds of things that you might not consider. And it doesn't cost you anything to go through a travel agent. So I would highly, highly recommend that.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry to take so much time.
No, that was my question. Anybody else going in here?
You could also travel by Zoom.
Yeah,
Hi, Gay.
it's a really big birthday.
Nah, you gotta be there in person.
Hi, Gay.
Going to-
Fred John here.
We're going to Walnut
All
Creek
right, that's
tomorrow.
enough frivolity from all of you.
Oh, darn.
Our noise meter said
We're just getting
we are
going.
reaching maximum din, so I figured it was about time to bring us back together. Okay, so I think you probably all had some interesting things to say. I'd love to know, well, any volunteers? Anyone want to volunteer something amazing they're doing? Bill Schro, you've been voluntold.
Hey, for everybody still on here, thanks for everybody turning on your
I was just
screens.
telling my
being
table
all
about,
the faces out
it's a trip to LA,
That was the best
but it's about a play that I helped write and produce back when I was at my other museum. It's called My Lord, What a Night, and it's about the first time that Albert Einstein met Marian Anderson, the opera singer. There's a very famous incident way before her concert on the Lincoln Memorial with 39. She's come to Princeton and she sang at the hall, and then she went to Nassau Inn, which was a very famous hotel in Princeton, New Jersey. She was denied a room. Einstein, who was a professor at Princeton, got so outraged he invited Marian to stay at his house. And they became lifelong friends. She only stayed at his house when she came to Jersey. But the incident became, it was a newspaper, it was a radio, because she was an unmarried black woman. And he was this Jewish professor at Princeton. So they didn't want to, nobody wanted this to happen. And they did it anyway. So we created a play with kind of what conversation might have happened. And we added his boss, who's also Jewish, saying, there's no Jews at Princeton right now, let's stay under the radar. And then we also added Ida Tarbell, who was the head of the NAACP at the time, telling Marian Anderson, go to the papers, go to the radio, we want this to be national. And she was like, no, I had a wonderful concert, I want to spend the night, and I don't want to, but the play is now hit, it was at Ford's Theater last year, and might be on the West End in London, it might be on Off-Broadway, and it's going to be at the Willis Theater in Beverly Hills come this spring, so I'm excited to go see it.
Well, talk to some people, let's get up here. Okay, who can beat that? Anybody can beat that? Anyone want to? Who's traveling the farthest away this year? LA doesn't count. Octavia, where are you going? Octavia is going to Nigeria and stopping by in France, which is the nice way to go, I think. So, Chris?
Well, our mighty table has determined that some of us are going to Scotland and the rest would like to go to Scotland.
All right, Scotland's not bad. Mike? So, okay, there's a great potential New Year's resolution. If you haven't been on a Rotary trip, go with Mike. So, fantastic. And Karen, last one.
We are all going to lose weight, and we'll check in next year and see how we did. And Matt Bell's starting a new job at Pivotal, so congratulations to him.
All right. I hope that was fun. We'll try to do that again, maybe in a month or two. But now we're going to do our next fun thing, which is, of course, to introduce a new member. So I'd like to ask James Williams to come up and bring your new member who is seated so far away from you. So, you know, clearly you're close.
Well, with another new member. So actually, I'm very proud to be introducing Tom Nixon. Tom and I have actually known each other for over 15 years because we both had adopted racing greyhounds, and mutual friends introduced us to get together and have dog play time. Tom has a long track record of serving in and leading LGBT community organizations in the Bay Area. So he's done a lot of nonprofit work throughout his life. Earlier in his professional life, he was a practicing attorney. We won't hold that against him, but he did some wonderful work with the helping to re-assimilate parolees from the California Youth Authority. So that was just phenomenal work that I really enjoyed learning more about. For the past 18 years, Tom has worked in real estate, and he's lived in San Jose for many years, but he only recently moved into downtown and is interested in getting involved here. And he bought a home right across the street, so there's no reason we shouldn't see him every Wednesday, right? So, Tom, you want to say a few words?
Great. So I didn't write anything down.
Let's have a big Rotary welcome.
Oh, thank you. I would like to say that I get a standing ovation every time I walk into a room, but that's probably not true. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about Greyhound dog owners. So Greyhounds are a reflection of their owners. So people that are really fit and trim and athletic get dogs that are the fastest, out in the track. So I've been in the Bay Area off and on for most of my life. I'm happy to be back in downtown San Jose. Looking forward to getting involved in the community in a different aspect. As Lance or James said, sorry, that's his husband. I was involved heavily in the LGBTQ group, and now that we can get married and divorced, we kind of have equality in my mind. So I'm really interested in doing something else. Not exactly sure what my interests are, and definitely looking forward to finding that out. So thank you so much.
Photograph. Well, we don't have a Greyhound. We've got a part rat terrier at home, so I guess that says something about me. We've got another new member introduction coming up, so let's bring up Gary Giannini and Holly Elkins.
Fellow Rotarians, it's my pleasure to introduce Holly. Holly is the president at Presentation High School, which is a private girls' school here in San Jose. And I've known Holly for about 4 years since she started at Presentation. But actually, she grew up in our neighborhood, and I've known her parents for 35 or 40 years. But haven't met Holly. I think I might have met her when she was a little girl, but I've forgotten because I'm a little older now. But anyway, it's my pleasure to present Holly as the newest member of our Rotary Club.
Well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. My name is Holly, and yes, I am the president of Presentation High School. And the one thing I want you to remember is, yes, we are celebrating our 60th anniversary as a school. We have an incredibly important mission of educating young women to become fearless and faithful leaders. But I want you to know that we are not your grandmother's all-girls Catholic high school. We have a lot of exciting things that are happening at the school. This is my 4th year there, and I have the privilege of leading a really great community. Gary is part of that community, and many of you are also part of the Presentation community. We have a strong history of doing a lot of service here in San Jose. I have the pleasure of having grown up here, also in the Willow Glen community. As Gary mentioned, my parents still live here. My husband, David, and I have 2 children. My son, Jack, is 12, and my daughter, Millie, is 8. So we're very busy with their lives and really being great big cheerleaders for all of the incredible things that they're doing. They go to St. Christopher's, which is right next door to Presentation. So I'm very lucky in all of that happens in our small community that we can do to support education and to support Willow Glen and our families there. But I'm very excited to be joining Rotary. I have yet to decide which committees I'll be a part of, but I'm really looking forward to being able to make a difference in the community that we know and love so much. We spend a lot of time with our children down here, and I know that our students are doing so much service here as well. It feels like it's definitely my turn. So I look forward to getting to know each of you. We do a lot of travel as a family. My husband and I did a lot of adventure travel before we had children, so I'm happy to talk about Cuba and Australia and Costa Rica and all those things if you ever want to chat about that. But thank you very much, and I'm just so happy to be here. I appreciate it.
Okay, so you heard that. Committee chairs, got a free agent out there looking for work. Get her to do something. Okay, next thing up is going to be something I've been trying to launch for a little while, a little fun activity for us. Seemed like a good time to do. It's called Taste of San Jose or Taste of SJ. I want to introduce you to some of our local businesses that will help you put a little money in the local economy and put a little good food in your bellies and not help your diet at all this month. The first one up is Pasteleria Adega, which, as if you don't know, yeah, well, go ahead, Richard, clap for them. So this is a bakery pastry shop that was opened by the Carrera family that owns Adega Restaurant in East San Jose and also Patisco's in Sofa. They bake their own bread. They have these wonderful little Portuguese donuts. They've got croissants, and of course their specialty are these pastéis de nata, which you can see up there, the big picture. These things are just amazing. You should try them. They're right on between 1st and 2nd Street, which is not the best stretch, but Gary Dillabo and his people are really trying to enliven that up with some new businesses. They're doing a great job. This is one of them. And now that I've told you this, you're like, man, I want to go there and try some of this, right? Well, fortunately, I brought some. And I would love to give this to someone to share with their table. There's actually 12 of them in there, and I don't think we have a table of 12, so you can pass them around to whoever you want. Does anyone want these? Anyone? Okay. Okay. First hand I saw go up was Sarah Klish, but you got to earn it. You got to earn it. So I'm going to ask you a question related to our gala, and if you get it right, you get this box, and if you don't, I move on to somebody else. What's the date of our gala? Does anyone at your table want to help you? Oh, Deanna Persai is gonna snake it. Go ahead. You've got the foot. March 25th. You got it. Enjoy. Sarah's got some new friends now. And speaking of Sarah Klish, as you know, she's also the chair of the Lee Weimer's Emerging Artist Awards, which is celebrating. When is it? Why, it is Wednesday, January 18th, which happens to be a week from now. They're having a fun event, a concert to benefit the program. It's a $20 suggested donation. It's at Mama Kin's, which those of you who remember was Cafe Stritch, and before that, Eulipia. It's a great, relatively still new restaurant and club. A lot of great music there, still a bit of jazz. It should be a great time. They're going to have music by the Jukebox Boys, which includes our own Mark Waxman. And of course, you can tell they're hip because they spell boys with a Z. That's fancy. Anyway, that's at 6 o'clock next Wednesday at Mama Kin's. They would love to see you out there and to raise some money for a great program that obviously I'm very close to. And also coming up this month, in this room, we are going to have a benefit for Ukraine. Steve Borkenhagen's been very involved in this, as you know. Yeah, we can cheer for this. We saw Herbert from the Santa Clara Club here talking about this before. Again, they're going to have a performance by Natasha Cheyenne. This is January 29th in this room at 2 o'clock. Our club will be buying a table for 10. So if you are interested in attending, the first 10 to contact Marie can attend at our table. And otherwise, you can purchase a ticket. You can see the QR code up there. We'll also include this information in the bulletin. And again, this is January 29th. Really important cause. A number of Rotary clubs in our district are participating in this to try to bring some generators and heat to Ukraine to try to keep them warm during the winter as this war enters its second year. So that is January 29th, and don't forget January 18th, and I'm sure Sarah's trying to make friends with people by handing out pastries right now. Okay, so that's all I have to say, so let's ask Randy Zechman to come up here and introduce our speaker. Randy Zachman.
Thanks, Sal. Thanks, sir. All right. So, do any of you have friends out there that you just marvel at their accomplishments and their wisdom? Just they seem bigger than thou. That's what Kip Harkness is, in my opinion. I've known him for about a decade, and we were in ALF class of 29 together. And from that into our fencing match, where he allowed me to at least score a couple of points before entirely demolishing me. I've always been inspired by his actions in life and in his profession. If anyone read his bio that we put together for this, it was entitled Timbuktu to San Jose, which I find very interesting and very appropriate for Kip. Today he's going to talk about the infrastructural innovation that makes San Jose the next great city, as he's deeply involved with that. We're fortunate to have him here today because he's the czar for disaster preparedness for the city of San Jose. So he's had a full plate and really worked things around to join us today. So greatly appreciate that. And one other thing is he has the title literally of Jedi Master. How many of you can say that? All right, Kip Harkness.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's really good to see so many friends out there, and Tricia, you're not allowed to heckle me. No. You know, it's said that old men live with their memories and young men live with their dreams. I'm old enough now to have a lot of memories, and I think I'm still young enough to have at least a dream or two left. So I want to talk to you a little bit about some memories I have from 30 years ago, and then connect them to where we are together in this valley today in a way that I hope you'll find relevant. I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable in this first part, so please open your hearts to me as I talk about this. So 30 years ago, I had the opportunity to live and work in Central Africa in Chad as a water and sanitation volunteer for the Peace Corps. And the farther I've gotten away from that, the kinder I realized that my African colleagues were to me as a 21-year-old who knew absolutely nothing about what was going on around him and was welcomed into an amazing place. This is a photo of me from almost exactly 30 years ago, and I'm moving water with a shadoof, which is a water moving technology that dates back to ancient Egypt over 6,000 years ago. And I worked with farmers there within the context of a village on the border of the Sahara Desert north of Lake Chad. And I still remember the first day being driven up and dropped off there. We'd spent 12 weeks trying to learn a lot about the local culture, context, and water and sanitation. I had to learn 3 languages, French, Arabic, and Kanamu, which is a dialect spoken right around northern Chad. And so I was incompetent in all 3. And we were driving up what took most of a 12-hour drive through just dust and felt farther and farther and farther away from anything that I had known. And we got to the village I was going to work in. They introduced me to the Sultan. We had some conversations with my limited language. They literally tossed my trunk out onto the sand and drove away. And I remember thinking, what have I done, right? And so I began to talk to the folks around me to try to understand the context. And as I said, I was still learning the languages. And so I realized it's much better to ask questions. So I learned to say, they'd talk about something, I say, well, limada, why? And then they'd pause and they'd reflect, and they'd give a deeper answer. And then they'd usually go on for a while and I didn't understand everything they said. So I'd go, Shanu shokol al mohim fi kalamak. Out of what you just said, what's most important? And then they'd pause, they'd think for a moment, and they'd say something more precise. And it turns out if you ask really smart people who know what they're doing, like the farmers I was working with, why and what's most important, eventually you come up with a strategic plan. And so by me asking and listening, I was able to create a space for them and their wisdom to surface, and they were able to teach me at the same time. And I want to share the idea of an oasis because I think it's actually, unfortunately, very relevant to where we are today. An oasis is not the accident of water in the desert. An oasis is the intentional preservation by the people who live there of a very, very scarce resource in a harsh and fragile environment, balancing the needs of farmers with the nomads, construction with drinking, the plants themselves with the people, and taking into account the variabilities of a climate that could change in any moment. So the wisdom of an oasis, the wisdom of an African oasis is extremely relevant to exactly the moment that we're in right now here in San Jose. So I want to throw out this idea of what would San Jose look like if we thought about it as an oasis? And I'm going to come back to that a little more concretely. I'm going to step back even more than my 30 years a little bit. I'm going to go back 100,000 years. And one of the things, this is a chart of average temperatures. And if you look back, one of the things you notice is that's pretty erratic. Up and down, cold and hot, ice age, warm, ice age, warm, ice age, warm, until about 11,000 years ago, when we kind of get this nice little long summer that's nice and warm for about 10,000 years, which we call the Holocene. Everything we think of as civilization, poetry, art, painting, buildings, language, weapons, technology, pipes, everything is created by that little pause in the erratic climate of the last 10,000 years. Humans 100,000 years ago were biologically identical to what they were and cognitively almost exactly the same as they are now. So it's not some idiot cave person going around 100,000 years ago who can't figure it out. It's you or me stuck in a changing climate, unable to adapt. So now we've had this 11,000 years of magical moment. And this is where we are starting from 1880. Let me see if I can get this. This is the average temperature. And you can see the white is sort of like, okay, it's kind of the average. As it gets blue, there's some cold years. And temperature always varies, right? There's always these variations in it. And okay, it's kind of cool. We're in the First World War right now, and things are staying pretty stable. We're getting into the Roaring 20s. It's getting a little warmer, as one would think in the Roaring 20s. 40s come around, World War II, it's consistently warmer. The 50s happen, it's conservative but warm, right? 60s, things literally start heating up. I'm born now, things really get going. The 1980s, oh, a little bit of red showing up there, 89, 90, I'm in Africa right now. Okay, all right, but yeah, it's getting hot, yeah, Oh my gosh, look at that. So you haven't been making this up. You haven't been imagining it. We have been warming up consistently and dramatically, given how short a span our lifetime is compared to that 100,000 years that I just showed you. And that warm up is not, unfortunately, just the normal climactic variations. That warm up, you can see, is pretty directly related to what we've been putting into the atmosphere. There's carbon going into the atmosphere, and then there's global temperature change. Now, correlation does not indicate causality, but I think we're pretty sure that that's the fact in this case. So that brings us back to where we are today. And I'm going to steal a little bit from Kate Raworth and Donut Economics. So last time I checked, we only have the one planet, right? And that's really important to remember. As I say, there is no planet B, right? And with that planet and that one planet that we have, we know we are overshooting the capacity of that planet in about 12 different serious ways, from land conservation to fresh water to climate change to about 9 others. All are beyond the capacity of our planet to sustain if we keep doing things the way we're doing. Now, that's a really hard problem to solve, a very difficult equation. Unfortunately, that's not the only one we need to solve. There are also people on that planet, and they are equally as important to us as the planet itself. And we have the opposite problem with people. We are dramatically undershooting at a global, local scale the needs of people. We're not meeting their needs for water, for housing, for clean energy, for equity, and a whole host of other shortfalls, which means that their lives aren't what they should be. This too is a very complex problem to solve. And what makes it even more complex is we need to solve both of these simultaneously, and they kind of point in different directions. Because to be honest, the easiest way to save the planet is to stop producing stuff. And the easiest way to deal with shortfalls is to produce more stuff. But neither of those work as we've thought of them classically. So this donut here, then, in between the people and the planet, this is our opportunity to create this safe, just space for both people and the planet. And that's where the work of this generation, if we want to give something to the next generation, has to be. The safe, just space for humanity within the constraints of the planet. What does that mean for us, though? I think as a city, it means, to start with, we need to shift the way that we think. Because as Covey says, there's always two creations. First creation is in the mind, and then there's the creation in the real world. As Giannini came up, I was thinking of A.P. Giannini, and the first creation of this notion of how I'm going to lend differently to people was in his mind, and then the Bank of Italy was created, right? So we need to shift our way of thinking first, and I think we need to change our mindset in three ways. We need to go out of this sort of departmental orientation into systems thinking. We need to stop thinking short term and think much, much longer term. And this is really hard for data people. The past is no longer prologue. You can't just say, oh, this is the flood zone, this is the 100-year flood, and therefore it's going to be the 100-year flood. No, now it's a 10-year flood. We have to realize that we are in a changing environment and shift our thinking. And we have to expand beyond sustainability to adaptation. Because even if we cut our carbon emissions to zero today, the world is still going to change around us, and we're going to still be hit by climate change. So we must mitigate and adapt simultaneously. And finally, we have to have an innovative and bold approach to financing and funding. And this may not be the most exciting point for some people, but follow the money. It's always about where the money is and what can get built, and I actually find that pretty interesting. So what does that mean for us as a city like San Jose? I always think in visuals, and I think there's a Venn diagram of where we should focus our energy as a city organization. First of all, we should ask ourselves the questions that Kate Raworth asks. What's most important for the planet, and what's most important for the people? Then we should ask the question, what's core to what the city of San Jose can and should do? We can't do everything. We can't take care of the peace in the Middle East, but we can welcome immigrants from war, right? So we have to understand what is our role as a city. And finally, out of all of the things that we could do, the myriad of interesting things, what are the vital few that could be truly transformative? And so trying to find that sweet spot and focus most of our effort and our energy there. So what does that look like? I don't know, but we've thought about this a lot as a city, and we've basically come up with these buckets and work streams. And what I'm going to do today is I'll talk very broadly about them briefly, but I'm going to pick just one of these 18 work streams. I'm going to pull it out, and I'm going to talk about it in greater depth and share with you how we're thinking about the city as we move into the future that we're going to face. So we believe, first of all, we need to be disaster ready and climate smart. I think on a day like today, you can understand why I've put those two together, because the disasters we're facing are driven by climate more and more. And California's always had an erratic climate. It's going to become more erratic. We need to have an infrastructure that's resilient. It's not enough to have it built right the first time. It has to resist the earthquake. It has to resist the fire. It has to resist the changes. In particular, we need to focus on energy and water and the interrelationship between those two if we're going to have a valley that thrives. And finally, we owe it to ourselves and the planet to also restore the natural environment. Everything from having street trees that are a true urban forest to taking a place like Coyote Valley and making sure that it can thrive. So I'm going to pick just one of these, which is create new water supply opportunities. And I'm going to go into it as the rest of my conversation with you. And then we'll pause for questions. So this is a super simple version of how we get water and how water moves around in the city of San Jose. It's important to know we have three main sources: the snowmelt in the Sierra Nevadas. We get water straight from the Hetch Hetchy in these giant pipes, some of the best water you'll ever get. Absolutely ideal, it turns out, for making silicon chips. We get water that we've retained in reservoirs and held between the drought years. And we have an abundant and huge aquifer right under our feet. Fountain Alley is Fountain Alley because the water popped up there. It was so abundant. We run this through different water suppliers, Muni Water, San Jose Water, and others. We run it through sanitary and storm sewers. We have the regional wastewater facility, which I love, the largest wastewater treatment plant west of the Mississippi. We hit over the storm. We had flows coming in of over 250 million gallons a day at the peak. Just an amazing amount of water that gets cleaned 3 times through a system and then put out in water that frankly is much cleaner than many people in Mississippi drink. And all of that's interconnected, but it's governed by different bits and pieces. Nobody has a system as a whole. So the problem is, I mentioned this, weather's changing. What does that mean for California? Well, it means we're going to get warmer and drier and have more erratic weather. Doesn't sound too bad when you say it that way, warmer, drier. But the problem is an arithmetic change in temperature in California has exponential, logarithmic, and tipping point effects on our water supply. So a little bit of a change has a much larger consequence. And that's difficult for the human brain to grasp because we think of things as linear and we think of them as arithmetic. What happens if we have a warmer and drier, not even a hot and dry, just a warmer and drier California? Well, the snowpack suddenly becomes unreliable. What does that mean? Well, on a good year, we get 100% of our allocation from the snowpack. On a not so good year, we'll get 5%. That's a big swing for something that's 30 or 40% of your water supply. Okay, well, we've still got the reservoirs. Well, only if they can hold water between the droughts. And so if the droughts become longer, the reservoirs dry up. Well, we can pump the water in that giant aquifer you talked about. Yes, and then North San Jose literally begins to sink into the ground. Literally, the subsidence starts. So at a slightly warmer, drier California, everything that we depend on becomes unreliable, and we're fighting with every farmer, with every fish, and every other city in California for the same limited resources. So what do? Well, the consequences of that are obviously it could be catastrophic. Water becomes less affordable. You can't build housing. You need to verify that you have a water supply before you can build a house. That's one of our many, many regulations on building housing, and that's never going to go away. You can't expand industry and jobs. A data center, a poorly designed one, can use 3.5 million gallons of water a day. A well-designed one still uses 800,000 gallons of water a day. These are enormous amounts, and I'm not even talking about energy. So we can no longer expand our jobs, and we can't green our environment. So all of that is at risk if we cannot solve this equation. So this is a challenge. What if we made Silicon Valley into an oasis? What if we took the wisdom of the folks that I work with in Chad and brought it here? I think what we need, and I've worked with Councilmember Cohen and others in the room around this concept, and he's been a leader in this, along with former Mayor Sam LaCarter and others. And I think I'll let him speak to what he sees next, but I think the time is now to create a circle around water. And I think we understand that conservation is a way of life, number one. We eliminate leaks and evaporation, number two. Leaks and evaporation, big deal. Leaks and evaporation in a poorly designed system can be 30 to 40% of the water. In Israel, where they treat water as a national commodity, the percentage of leaks is down to 8 to 6% system-wide. Every drop of water that isn't leaked is essentially new water that's been created. So you eliminate all those leaks and evaporation. You expand our purple pipe, which is our existing recycled system, which we use for flushing or irrigation or other things. You max that out because that's essentially water that we've already produced. And then you do two things which are pretty radical. You create purified water for drinking. You make that tap a circle. Now people call this toilet to tap and they get a little scared about it. But if you live in the Mississippi River, you dump the stuff out of a water treatment plant, you wait 4 minutes, you pump it in, you put some chlorine in it, and you're fine with that. But if we do it through a system where it's 4 times safer, there you have issues. We're going to have to get over that. And we do brackish water desalination at scale because it's the cheapest way to clean salt water, and we have an ample supply right here. So that, I think, is the challenge. Is to think as they do in an oasis that you're going to create this scarce space and make it available to those who need, not just now, but over the long haul. And that is one of the 18 work streams that we have around infrastructure and resilience right now. And so I put that out there as the challenge, not just for the city teams that are working on this, but Valley Water, San Jose Water, and of course, all of you who are deep stakeholders in the future of the Valley. So that's it. Thank you very much for letting me share a little bit of that. And I'd be happy to take any questions, heckling, or comments that are coming my way.
That was very informative. I appreciate that. My question is this. Why does the state not do more in terms of investing in desalination plants? San Diego, years ago, I think it's been about 7 or 8 years, the county of San Diego has its own desalination plant. What's wrong with the rest of the state?
Yeah, it's interesting. I just had a good conversation. There was a very big desalination plant that was just denied its go through, and I actually talked with a guy who ran that process for like 14 years to try to get it approved before getting kicked in the teeth one final time. You know, we have to balance the environment and people's needs, and I think you have to realize that you can actually do desalination in a way that is not going to destroy the ecosystem, and that brackish water and the main output from a desalination plant is not surprisingly salt. The reverse osmosis process creates this brine, this hot brine. It is the disposal of that which becomes the linchpin in California politics, and the exclusive domain of the Coastal Commission to say what happens or doesn't, beyond what I would say at this point is reasonable science around how that is done. Unless we change that and allow us to have safe ways of disposing brine that allow us to do desalination at scale, we're going to be taking away one of our most possible tools to solve this problem.
Thanks again. That's very interesting and very informative. I was just thinking there are two elements here that we would consider. One is to increase or begin to educate the populace with respect to the purple pipe issue that you mentioned, because that seems to be the quickest way to regain some of the water that we're losing. The second one is to charge a higher price for water for those who consume a lot more water. And those are two that come to mind. Thank you.
Yeah, I tell you, you know, it's interesting. One of the things that I really learned deeply is that in water, price is an incentive, right? And what's interesting about it in the African context in particular, poor people end up paying a lot for water, hauling sometimes very poor water quality. We are essentially giving away water for free. In some instances here, we're not bearing the full cost of it, and making sure that price is a true incentive is one of the best things that we can do, while preserving for households the ability to have very affordable water. And you can do both exactly the way you've described. Water up to a certain point should be kind of a right and almost freely available, and then after that, yeah, you can use it, but you should pay the true cost, is my opinion.
My question has to do with capacity and water storage. And I know you only had a limited amount of time, but I'd like to hear you expand a little bit on your thoughts on taking existing reservoirs, which are all over our state, and as a state, we're stymied between environmental opposition and the need for water. And has anybody done studies about San Luis Reservoir and even as small down as Coyote and some of the other ones that we have local here in Santa Clara County, and looked at increasing the capacity of those existing reservoirs, raising the dams, raising the road infrastructure that may get impacted by raising the water level? But presumably those reservoirs have already gone through some environmental approval over the years. And has that been looked at, to your knowledge, seriously?
Yeah, this is a bit outside of my already thin area of expertise. I would say one of the things that I think is a real opportunity to increase the capacity of existing reservoirs, and that has been done in other places, and I think we should explore very seriously here. You can put floating solar panels on reservoirs. That does two things. It generates solar energy, which is useful, and it reduces evaporation. There's huge loss by evaporation from our existing open water reservoirs. So if you can shade them, you can effectively create more water in them over time, which is what you need to do, without changing the dynamics or the shape of the dam. And if you put solar on top of that, you have a twofer of actually generating energy while you're doing that. The technologies exist today that make that economically viable. Obviously, there's some reservoirs that are used for boating and others, so you think about where you'd want to do this, but there's no reason that that couldn't be done at scale and create 10, 20% effective increase in those reservoir capacities. The re-engineering is really, really hard under California law. So I think there's probably a lot of viability that needs, it probably should be done. It's also one of those things that's just super hard. CEQA is one of the things that makes it very, very difficult. NEPA as well, but CEQA more so, I would say. Yes. Oh, you've got a mic? Let's go mic here and then to you first.
Thank you for your comments. I really appreciate them. I'm curious to know your thoughts. Is it on? I'm curious to know your thoughts on how local can we be in our focus on solving our water needs. I'm thinking about our competition with other states like Colorado and Arizona. I'm thinking about our competition with other parts of the state like Southern California, and even with industries like farming. How much can your solutions that you're talking about take care of our local needs?
It's a very good question. I'm actually engaged with some folks from the National Science Foundation West Big Data Hub who are water experts, and we want to create a model that allows us to ask and answer this more precisely. But back of the envelope, I think we can actually mostly create a circle with the water that we've got now. Remember, our regional wastewater facility on average has 120 million gallons a day into the bay, 120 million gallons a day. Historical flows, remember, it's just Coyote Creek and Guadalupe. We're almost nothing. So we have almost all of that water available to turn into a circle. And if you can keep it a circle, you've got the same water going around and around. It's not perfect, but we should have an 85 to 90% solution. We shouldn't have to be fighting with LA. We shouldn't have to be fighting with Phoenix. Yes, please.
I have the impression that the local reservoirs are relatively small compared to the bigger state reservoirs. How full are they, and how much extra capacity do they have at this point after all these rains?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Our biggest local reservoir is that behind Anderson Dam, which is actually drained down to near dead pool right now because it is seismically unsafe, and we have about an $8 billion, Valley Water is undertaking about an $8 billion rebuild of it, as they've been ordered to do by FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. So at this point, one of our biggest reservoirs is out of commission. They have a number of other around the valley that they really work hard to maintain. The difficulty, though, is the longer the periods of drought, they're not designed for a 5-year drought. They're not designed to keep water in it. So you'd have to make them bigger, and there just aren't that many places you can make them bigger cheaply without dramatic and drastic environmental consequences, my opinion.
Leslie?
So much like the state is having huge issues with wildfire and our lack of kind of tending and maintenance of the lands, and the native people used to do controlled burns. This is something we're well aware of, and much like you said, the people you worked with, it's something they've been doing in dry areas for presumably millennia as well. Have we looked at any of the ideas of like keyline planting or things where you're essentially trying to maintain and trap water along the hillsides? We live up in the hills, and right now I'm watching a beautiful river flow right through our property, but none of that water is staying on our property. It's all shooting through a creek and going right down, presumably to the ocean, as opposed to sinking into the land where we're at.
Yeah, this is where nature-based solutions become extremely important. Things that are called green stormwater infrastructure, where rather than just building a bunch of pipes, create maybe in a park or in an open space an ability to hold that water a little bit longer, filter it through using natural plants and different natural filters, and then recirculate the aquifer. Beautiful thing to do. Coyote Valley is a perfect example of a green stormwater infrastructure, if you will. It's flooded right now, and that's kind of exactly what it should be doing in terms of being able to recirculate that water in. There are huge opportunities in that area.
Valley Water has approved spending billions of dollars on a new dam. If you were to advise them on the one solution that is the best use of the resources, what would it be? I mean, you talked about solar panels on reservoirs, you've talked about water purification, purple pipe infrastructure. What would be the most impactful way they should be spending their resources now?
From my perspective, I think the thing that they could do that could make the most benefit for us as a community is expand that purple pipe to the absolute max with us and to build purified water in a way that closes that loop. I'm a big advocate of direct purified water because that saves us the necessity of having to build a pipeline somewhere, put it down, back in, let it percolate in, and then pump it back out. But there's probably room for both. But it's those two things, and the couple of $1 billion in that, which I know sounds like a lot of money, could actually be the guarantor for the continued economic prosperity of this valley. Full stop.
Kip, do you? I've tried for about 10 years to try and get some of that recycled water, just on a personal basis, for my irrigation or even for my swimming pool, because as you know, the operation is huge. They will not let even a pilot program go out. You must have done some work because it's still, I think it's in the city's jurisdiction, South Bay Water Recycling.
Yes, it is.
But they are just, there's no programs to try. People who want to do it can't use it. So, and I've been working for 10 years to try and do it. I just can't. And the pipe goes right by my office. That's why I want to just put a little spout there.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Well, I wouldn't recommend that, and I'll just put my hands over my eyes if you do that. But it's interesting. We were extremely innovative when we pioneered it, and we sort of let it be. And I think it's exactly the moment to step back and say, how might we? What might we do? And reopen those questions of how we would be innovative and what are appropriate uses. Because we were ahead of the curve, and now we've kind of gotten behind the curve. It's time to jump back ahead and look at everything from, if we want to have swimming pools, maybe that's the way to do it, to how do you get it to individual homes for more creative uses. So stay tuned, right? Oh, good. That's usually what I do. Suck the oxygen right out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kip, for your program. And to let you know, a donation is being made on your behalf to History San Jose, which is helping keep alive our city's heritage. And look, I found a phone. One of these handy San Jose. I was powerful for this long. Okay. Well, I'd like to thank again the Los Amigos Committee for greeting us. I'd like to thank Desiree and Ava for handling the traveling mics. Of course, James Williams and Gary Giannini for bringing in a couple of new members and introducing them today. Anyone who brings in a new member is tops in my book. Congratulations to Sarah Klisch for winning those pastries. I hope you all enjoyed them, or at least 12 of you. And next week, our speaker will be San Jose Police Chief Anthony Mata, so you'll want to be here. Remember, we've got a couple of events coming up this month that Rotarians are participating in. Have a great week. Stay dry, stay safe, and keep the good times rolling. Meeting adjourned.